Hello, my name is Jade Cale, and I'm here on the Prescott College campus. Today is a very special day. This is because I'm going to be creating a couple prototype alpaca wool mats that can be used on woody invasive species such as Siberian elms. But first, let me explain to you what materials I'll be using. So the first thing you're going to need is a wooden frame. I actually got lucky because this wooden frame is a raised garden bed. This works out perfectly because the lip is pretty tall and that contains all the wool that I'm going to put into it. Next up, I'm going to be using some spare fabric. So this is actually a bed sheet that I had cut to fit in the frame of here and also include overlap on this lip. The next fabric is tulle fabric. So this is very fine netting, which helps the water soak through, but also keeps the fibers off of your hands when you're working with it. So next up, let's talk about soap. So the soap I'm going to be using for this project is an unscented Castile soap. So a couple reasons why I chose this type of soap. The first reason why is that the ingredients list doesn't list anything that's volatile. And this is important because I'm trying to apply my product onto woody invasive species in riparian systems. And I don't want any of those volatile ingredients to leach into the waterway. So the next reason why soap is so important is because it changes the pH of the fibers, which makes the whole felting process come together. So the ideal pH for your soap is between 7 and 9. Castile soap is going to be at around 9 and above. So to remediate this, I actually made an alkaline solution with soap diluted with water. The ratio is going to be 5 milliliters of Castile soap to 1 liter of water. And so what I did here is that I measured out my water first, I boiled it, and then I mixed in my soap. Next off, I have this bag of shredded newspaper. So I'm specifically using newspaper because most newspaper in the US actually uses soy-based inks as opposed to petroleum-based inks. So soy-based inks can be easily composted back into the environment without all the volatile components. But one paper that you want to avoid is actually this coated paper. And so you'll see this coated paper in like magazines and ads, and it has that shiny feel to it. And that shiny feel is actually a plastic coating. So we want to avoid that. So the next material I'm going to use is this pool noodle. I've seen people use PVC pipes, but I found that this pool noodle is the perfect length for my wooden frame, so I'm just going to be using that. And this is used in the agitation process, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Last but not least is our alpaca fiber. So this alpaca fiber is discard, which basically means that they won't be used in any textile arts besides mine because this comes off of the neck and the underbelly of the animal. Artists don't typically use these parts because they are pre-matted by high use of the animal, and also there's just excess amounts of vegetation in it and it's not worth them using. But I'm going to be using it today. The sun is shining, the birds are chirping, so let's get into the first mat. So the first rug I'm going to be making today is only going to be using wool. I'm going to have to layer it up very thickly because it's got to be durable enough to withstand at least 3 years in the sunlight. It also needs to block as much UV rays as possible because tree roots can still photosynthesize and resprout. So now that I have all of my wool inside of the frame, I can start the fulling process, which is basically adding heat and agitation to create the felt mat. So first off, I'm going to put down this tulle fabric. So as you see, it's very sheer, very thin. And put that down in one section. And then I'm going to start adding my alkali solution on top over here. And what I'm going to do is add more actually, and then start matting it down. And so I'm just trying to compress the fibers down a little bit more so I can actually roll it up and do the actual um, agitation. So now that I applied my alkali solution and did the initial matting down, I'm going to roll it up with this backing fabric. So here it is, all bound up like a mummy. And when I was carrying it over here, it was pretty heavy because wool can actually absorb 8 times its weight in water. And so I used a lot more water than I thought I did. Um, I think it was like only 10 liters of water, but yeah, that's all in here. And so next is the main agitation stage where I will be doing like foot rolls, and I'm going to be rolling it around 200 to 300 times per side. So now that I completed my 300 foot rolls on one side, I'm going to untie it and re-roll it the other way and then do 300 more foot rolls. So here is the mat after about 600 foot rolls. I'm going to let it dry overnight and then we can check back in the morning. So after finishing off the first rug, I came to some conclusions and had some new ideas for the second one that I was going to attempt. So the first rug used uncarded wool, such as this, which hasn't been processed. And what I found was that there was a bunch of holes created during the fulling process. And what some people have used to help with the holes in their rugs is using carded felt. So I was going through my second bag of felt and noticed that I actually have carded wool. And so for this next one, I'm going to do a layer of uncarded wool, a layer of shredded paper to help with opacity. Layer that on nice and good. Big old thick layer. Um, I'm gonna add more of this uncarded wool on top and then a layer of carded to keep it all together. I'm also not gonna do a full frame this time because I realized that I really don't have as much wool as I thought for this project. So here I am at day 2, and my mats have been able to dry out. And let's take a look at how well they held up. So this is the first rug that I made, and I initially started out with this uncarded wool, and as you can see, it's falling apart pretty easily, as I expected, and that's why I added carded wool at the back. And this carded wool came together pretty well. However, it is very thin, so you can like easily see my finger going through there, so that would not work because the trees will resprout. But that's okay. Now I know that I'm gonna be needing way more carded wool than usual if I'm gonna be doing this product, which means more labor or machinery costs. So this is the second rug that I made, and this one was uncarded wool, newspaper, uncarded wool, and then this carded wool in the back to keep it all together. And same thing with this one, I'm gonna need a lot more carded wool to stay on the back for that. So that's good to know. But I feel like this pulp layer or this paper layer turned into pulp, which is very nice for the opacity because no sunlight can be seen through it. But I think it helped keep the layers kind of together when it turned into mush. But I think this is a good baseline to use for my next prototype.